Hello, everyone, and welcome to Café New Canadians, our virtual chat series. Café New Canadians is brought to you by New Canadians, which is a TV and web-based series for newcomers to Canada and those who are about to immigrate to Canada. And you can watch us all on all platforms. If you're in Canada, you can watch us every week on Omni Television, Canada's leading multicultural channel. And you can always watch us from Canada and overseas, wherever you are, on our website, newcanadians.tv, or our YouTube channel, where this session is being live streamed, youtube.com/newcanadians. And in all these places, you will find various resources and information about services and tools and many programs for newcomers to Canada that help them with settling successfully here. Café New Canadians is sponsored by Destination Employment. Destination Employment is a program that helps newcomers to Canada gain meaningful employment in Canadian hotels and tourism sector. Participants in the program get free mentoring and training opportunities through the program. And if you're interested in to know more about the program and to get employment in the sector, please visit their website, destinationemployment.ca, for more information and to register. Today's topic of Café New Canadians is boost your job search with a compelling resume. And we will discuss this topic with two amazing guests, Danielle Wong, Career and Employment Specialist, and Michelle Nadon, President of Media Intelligence. I'm not today's moderator, I'm just doing the introduction, and now I'm honored to introduce today's guest host, Vrunda Bhatt. At New Canadians, we believe in opportunities for newcomers, in creating and offering opportunities for newcomers, especially newcomers who have a media, marketing, or communications background. Welcome, Vrunda, to our session tonight, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Gerard. Thank you so much, Gerard. It's an exciting day for me today because both Daniel and Michelle has played a very instrumental role when I was a job seeker in Canada and when I was job searching. And oh my goodness, I'm so looking forward to tonight's session.
I'm very confident that viewers tonight will benefit immensely from Daniel's and Michelle's knowledge and experience, as well as your personal experience as a newcomer to Canada. All the best with today's session, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Gerard, for giving me this opportunity. I would like to welcome everyone who have joined us today. It's one of my favorite subjects on how to boost your job search using a compelling resume. Sometimes when you see a job opportunity in Canada, by the time the window closes, we have 1,000 applications, 2,000 applications. So how to be that one perfect applicant? So I'm sure Danielle, who deals with a lot of newcomers, and Michelle, with her experience of, I think, more than 2 decades now of helping newcomers and a lot of job seekers, we are going to do great in today's session. So Michelle and Danielle, I welcome you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vrunda.
It's lovely to be here.
Thanks for having us.
To start with, Michelle, I think the top lead of the resume, which you call the real estate, is very important. Can you please throw us some light on how to write a very good lead for a resume?
By all means. Your name should be front and center. The resume should never be titled resume at the top. Your name should be front and center. It should be a larger font than the remaining contact information underneath it. I'm strongly recommending, since this has kind of come up since COVID-19, where there are so many job seekers, I'm really recommending now that each individual put their 3 top specialties listed under their name, so that a recruiter like myself doesn't have to do the math. I can already see, okay, you're a communications person, you're an HR person, you're a finance person. So putting the titles in the top of your resume, as well as your email signature, really facilitates people getting to understand what it is that you're good at. Then, if I can't say this more strongly, contact information, contact information, contact information. The world wants to get a hold of you now. So put your cell number up there if you don't have any privacy issues around it. Get your LinkedIn profile up there. Put up an accessible email account. Make it easy for people to find you. And then once you've got that information down, that top real estate, think about adding a color to it. Think about how you want it represented on the right margin, on the left margin. What's a nice balance? How much room am I taking, right? Usually about a quarter, not even, a little less than a quarter. And then once you have that established, you can just take that and migrate it to all your other marketing tools, like your email signature and the top of your letterhead and your list of references. And boom, you've got a brand.
That's lovely, Michelle. Daniel, you deal with a lot of newcomers, and you know, a lot of newcomers come from a country wherein there are a lot of cultural aspects involved with them. For example, the country that I come from, we write our hobbies and we write our genders to our resume, whereas we do not do that in Canada. So, do you see a pattern in the mistakes that newcomers come from? For example, say South Asians will always tend to have certain level of mistakes. This part of the world will always have this level of mistakes. Can you please throw some light on that?
Yeah, there's certain things I see over and over again. I'll start with actually just off of what Michelle was talking about, the header. One thing is names, right? So put the name on your resume that you want to be called at work. It could be different. It could be the same, or it could be different than what's on your passport. The resume is not a legal document. It's nothing like a passport. So for instance, if your name is Jonathan, but no one calls you Jonathan except your parents when they're mad at you, don't put Jonathan. If you call yourself John, put John, because that's what you see, that's your identity, that's your brand, that's what you want people at work to call you. So, well, I'll use a newcomer example. If your name is Mohammed and you call yourself Hamid or Mo, and that's what you want to be called here, you could put that, even though it's not your full name, it's okay. Mm-hmm. It's, when you come to Canada, it's a chance to rebrand yourself, and no one's going to verify your passport or your driver's license. Another thing is, I know a lot of people come here and, fortunately they find a job. However, it's a survival job, which is different from a professional job. You want to list your survival job, it's your choice, but to fill in the gap, you definitely can list it. It's a good thing, so you don't have that gap, but you want to separate your professional work listing from your survival job listing. So everything you've done professionally that you want to continue to do here, you want to find your pathway here, you put it under a category called professional work. And then your survival job, you put it under another category called other work or other employment. And so there's, it will reduce confusion for the reader, which is the employer. Mm-hmm. So if you found a job in Walmart and you don't put it in the same listing as all your engineering work, because if you put your job at Walmart with everything else and it's your most recent job, people may be confused that you want to change careers and you want to work in retail after a career in engineering. So that's my first bit of advice, especially for newcomers. I think this would be very effective to reduce confusion for the reader, which is the employer. Mm-hmm. Another point is too much emphasis on foreign credentials, right? So not to look down on your foreign credentials, but you want to build context. You want to build commonality with your employers here, which are local. So if you keep on repeating company names, client names, your education and certifications that are in a foreign country that are not recognizable here, they don't carry, it's not like they're not important, but they just don't carry the same recognition, the same weight here, right? So you want to not maybe repeat those names over and over again. I want to add the company's website. And this is something I advice I give to everyone, newcomer I speak to. If you work in a company that is only known in India or in the UK or South America, it doesn't have a name recognition here. Definitely put the name down, but you also want to add the website, because employers here would want to verify, what is this company? Is it a school, or is it a hospital or engineering firm? They won't know, because if it's not local here, they have no idea. So put a website, it adds credibility, and people will usually anyways Google your employer. You save them the work by putting the website. Achievement is really, really important. And in some cultures, I've heard that people don't want to talk about their achievement even as a job seeker, because they consider it bragging. And that's one of the biggest differences in North America. It's not bragging, it's selling yourself, it's marketing yourself, it's branding yourself. And it's not enough that you tell people, I do this, I do that here. You have to show them. So you have to list your achievements. And we could talk about that a little later on in terms of how you would do that with keywords and numbers, and things like that. And the lack of keywords is my next point. Keywords is everything, and Michelle was talking about the ATS. I think she'll go into a little further later on. You have to put the right keywords in the resume, and the best way to do that is look at your job posting. Whatever's on the job posting, what keywords and phrases, you can mirror that on your resume. And yeah, so those are the key things I want to see over and over again.
Thank you, Daniel. That was very informative. Michelle, coming back to you, I have two questions for you. Since you spoke about lead, I want to know what's the font size which is preferable, and what's the font type which is preferable for the lead. And B, now I want to address the elephant in the room, which is ATS, the dreadly ATS. This word didn't exist in my vocab till I came to Canada. And then once I came to Canada, oh my God, what is this ATS?
Okay, well, let's start with fonts. I work in the creative industries, and I like to see a little originality in a resume. It can be as simple as there was one young woman I was working with a few weeks back. She went from a strictly content CV, and then she took her name, she gave it this lovely red, bumped it up a little bit. She was using a regular font, but just because she gave it a treatment, it looked so much more sort of visually compelling, right? And most systems in Canada, we're pretty reasonably technologically savvy. So, if you use like a really funky font, I mean, that might not work going through an ATS system. But if you use like the regular Helvetica News or New Times Roman or Arial or what have you, my personal favorite is Trebuchet. I don't know if anybody else has that. But I find it very crisp, very readable. And then you need to decide, I mean, at the end of the day, you are the person who is best able to represent yourself. So does your name look good, that size, that color? Do you need to take it down a notch? What are you comfortable with? Do you want to go brighter? Do you want to go a little bit darker? Do you want to be more conservative? What do you want to be? At the end of the day, it's your call for how you look. But professional, clean, well delivered, well formatted, certainly no typos ever, right? And then from there, I mean, you can basically do anything. In terms of the font size for the actual resume itself, headers, of course, are going to be a little bit different than the regular text. You don't want to make the regular text too small and jammed. We need to have like adequate white space. And most people read a resume in a Z format, right? Some people read a resume, like a machine might read a resume in an F format, right? So they read down one column and then they read down another. And you don't know what system you're working with, how sophisticated it is on the other end. So let's go to ATS. ATS will largely take what you've got, as long as it's not like crazy and overdone, and as long as your document isn't jammed with a bunch of changes and reformatting and formatting on top of formatting in the back end of the document, right? In the coding of the document itself. The cleaner it is, the cleaner things are going to be. Now, ATS systems They are becoming quite common in Canada. I would venture at this point that it's largely the large companies that use ATS systems because they're the ones who A, need it the worst, and B, they can afford it, okay? So the really big, super established companies, you want to really mind your P's and Q's. You might want to send a Word doc instead of a PDF format. Although personally, my preference is PDF because it locks it in, it's clean, it looks professional. I'm also told by an HR person in one of our largest, most respected organizations here, that an ATS will be fine taking a document in PDF format up to 2 megabytes, or megabytes rather. So as long as the file size isn't too large, it should make it through. Now, small and medium companies, are they using ATS? I would say probably not so much unless they invested well before the COVID-19 pandemic. So, you know, I think that you can do Word doc or PDF quite comfortably. And, but there is a report recently I read, and I can't quote the source right now, but it did state that sometimes ATS systems have a problem reading up and down columns, okay? So that might be just one thing you want to think about. Like, I think it's acceptable to have one column on the left-hand side and then the rest fleshed out on the right. I think that's fine. But if you've got numerous columns and blocks and whatnot, that could be, I think, problematic for ATS. And then of course, there's the next level, which is artificial intelligence. That's a whole other ball game.
Yeah, actually, I have also seen many people posting their photographs, especially if they have not come to Canada. They do target their resumes. They think that resume is good. They post their photographs on their resume. So, is it advisable to have your photograph on your resume? What is your take on that?
Absolutely. You are who you are. Be happy, be proud, okay? Your name is one of the most beautiful gifts your parents ever gave you. So get out there and teach the world your name, and don't worry about it. Photographs, you know, some people will argue, because there's always somebody who's going to argue that they can lend bias to an equation. Well, bias is as bias does. And if there's going to be any bias present, you might as well know it at the front end of the process and get out fast, right? So it's an open world. We're all, you know, now learning to really celebrate each other. Well, let's take the opportunity and celebrate ourselves at the same time. So my vote always for a photograph, absolutely. Now, that being said, I prefer a photograph that shows an individual kind of in situ, like, you know, what you're looking at behind me here, this is my office. This is where I do all of my work, right? You can't see 3/4 of it. I mean, there's an old filing cabinet and there's papers all over my desk and what have you, but this really is representative of me. And it's also reasonably unique in that it's got like some funky little elements that are like brain candy, right? So, so I really suggest that, that you pay attention to the background as well. That's another branding element that you can use.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Daniel, I think I have a question from you from one of the attendants here. Can you please provide the guidance on how to write the best objective based on the job description?
Yeah, so the objective line would be right under the header. So I call the objective line your branding statement. And the branding statement is everything. The branding statement, if you write it and you write it well, then you can use it for many different things. You could use it for your resume. You could use it for your LinkedIn. You could put it on your business card. And it's also, you could use it as your elevator pitch. So it's a few good, it's a few lines, really. It's a little, my recipe is a little bit about your past, a little bit about the present, and a little bit about the future. So for instance, you know, you could say that I have 5 years of experience in accounting. I worked in accounting firms, and I worked in the government sector. My key skills are, and you know, you can name one or two key skills in accounting. I'm not in accounting, so I don't know what they are. It could be, receives accounts receivable, payable, different types of accounting. Just mention a few key things that you do within accounting that are your key skills. And then your last line is about what you want to do. So I want to work in a nonprofit as an accountant, or I want to work in a government agency, or I want to work in healthcare. So it's a few lines. That's it. And that's your that should be your objective line. Most people keep it really brief, or people write way too much, right? It's just those few lines, and once you create that, you own it. And it's something you could replicate on your LinkedIn. It should be on your LinkedIn. It should be in your business card. And it should be how you introduce yourself. So it's super important. If you mess up anything else on your resume, you cannot mess that up. But if you have a good introduction, like your objective statement, it really sets the tone for your whole resume.
Okay. With, in the similar lines, I have one more question. Either of you can answer that. So, does every application needs a cover letter, or will it do if I do not write a cover letter? What is the importance of cover letter in Canadian market?
Cover letters are more important than ever. With the resulting effects of the pandemic, people have slowed down, they're taking their time, they're being more mindful. HR practices and diversity and inclusion are being called out more often. So people are paying better attention, and frankly, so they should, okay? It's time for us all to pay attention properly to one another. Now, going back to Daniel's statement about the objective can also, in Canada, be called a profile. It can be, the subtitle can be your profile, okay? And you're quite right, Daniel, it's to be used absolutely everywhere. The interview, the elevator pitch, the cover letter, all of it. And it'll be the toughest piece of copy you ever write because you have to write it about yourself. But it is your story. And write it up, and then the first version is not going to be that great, and then you just, as you evolve as a person, your profile statement evolves with you, right? You're allowed to grow and change. So is it. So that's a really useful thing, and of course you use it in your LinkedIn summary as well.
Yeah, and just to Michelle's point, we can't be objective about ourselves. So it's because it's the nature of things. So just like resumes, cover letters, your profile, get someone to proofread it for you. But at the end of the day, it has to sound like you. So you give yourself the final approval, stamp of approval. But have everyone, someone you trust, not everyone, someone you trust, proofread it for you. It's super important.
Yeah, thank you for being my proofreader, actually, Daniel, because in my job search, I remember going to Daniel and say, can you please proofread this for me? Can you please? Because I think I have applied for more than 250 applications here in Canada when I received the luck. Speaking of that, Daniel, I have another interesting question for you. For someone looking to pivot, how does one alter their resumes to suit a job posting that does not necessarily be 100% match with their previous experience?
I'm going to start this, but Michelle, I want you to end it because Michelle has a really good strategy. Definitely, job postings it's like a science and art. The truth is, a lot of people who write the job postings do a really terrible job at writing a job posting. And a lot of people, and Michelle can vouch, and even Rhonda can vouch for this now. A lot of people who write job postings are actually not the hiring managers. They're HR, and sometimes they are the HR junior associate who just started the job. They have no idea what the job really is. They're just given a list of skills and expertise and educational requirements by the hiring manager. They write everything down. There's no particular order, and they're asking for the world. And if you read it literally, like that you have to, if you think that you need to like be 100% match, you will never apply for any job. Like most likely you won't be applying to many jobs at all. Very few people match 100% to the job description. So I think I guess the conventional wisdom is if you self-score yourself, self-assess yourself, if you have like 80%, around 80% of the qualifications, then go for it and apply for it. And everything else can be learned, right? And I want to just pass on to Michelle because Michelle has a really good system how to assess yourself.
Okay. I've been, if I could just get this concept to go mainstream, it would improve the GDP at the very least in Canada. I use an exercise called Are You Shortlistable? All right. I challenge people, print up the job posting, sit down with it with a marker, go through it line by line, every single requirement. Okay, first question, they want this. Yeah, I've got 100% of that. Great, 100%. Next item. Oh yeah, I've got 100% of that too. All right, great. Next item, 80%. Next item, uh-oh, I've only got 20%. Next item, oh, I'm back to 90, okay? And you go through every hard and soft skill. And you make an honest, listen to your guts, listen to your heart, make an honest assessment of where you're at. You're only doing the exercise with yourself. No one's going to see it anyway, okay? And then when you get to the bottom, average it out. Now, I would say, Daniel, in this environment right now with the heightened competitiveness, you're shooting for 85% of match to required skills. So if you're under 85%, you can still apply at 80%, but just understand that you're probably like the competition's going to be stronger, right? But once you know what your deficiencies actually are, like that one where, uh-oh, I've only got 20%, okay? Then you can craft an argument to defend it. So I know I'm lacking in this area, but here's my plan to fix it, right? I'll take a 2-week starter course on the internet for $150, like whatever, right? And just make an honest assessment of your match to required skill. And when people don't do that, that's the reason why HR departments get 600 applications, is because people are not self-screening properly. And that, job seekers worldwide, hear me please, that is your responsibility. You've got to hold up your end and really be a professional and do your homework around the subject so you're walking in prepared. And also, if you do that exercise, you're also walking in 3 times more confident, because now you don't just think that you're qualified. Now you actually know that you are. So you can open a cover letter introducing yourself and saying, I'm delighted to see this application, and I'm happy to say I've done an informal analysis of the job description, and I rank as a very high match to this role. Boom. Okay, so are you shortlistable? Stop thinking that you're qualified and start knowing where and how you're qualified, and most importantly, knowing where you're not qualified so you can compensate.
Yeah. Oh, very true.
Yeah. I mean, very few people know everything. Very few people actually meet 100%, right? And it's okay, but it's important also to know what is a must-have and what is a nice-to-have. Now, sometimes they actually write that, but sometimes you have to read it between the lines as well. And if there's a job and like you're 85%, but there's like a few key things that are like, oh, they really want to have it, but I don't. And I would say go for it, and those are the things you want to learn because you haven't done it before. And and that's where the cover letter kicks in. A cover letter is your negotiation. So there's something you haven't done, but you want to do, and you really want this job. If you have done things that you can convince the employer that you have the aptitude to learn because you've done similar things, but you just haven't done that one thing. That's what you need to add on your cover letter. And that's where you have to exercise your writing skills and be compelling and negotiate and just honestly express the desire to learn. I haven't done it before, but I've done this and this and this and this. I have proven I have the aptitude to learn that.
Yeah.
And that's why I want this job, because I haven't done it before. And people love people who are eager to learn. Yeah.
Speaking of that, Daniel, we have a couple of questions on transferable skills by the audience. I'm sure you deal with a lot of journalists from all over the world, and they have a background in journalism, whereas in Canada, they end up making a career in marketing, something in which they never had any experience in. So how do I address that gap? Like, for example, if I were to apply for a marketing role, I don't have any experience in that role. So how to address that and how to use my transferable skills and make a resume which perfectly fits it.
Transferable skills. I think it's important to, first of all, look at the job posting and make a list of, like, I use this exercise. I take 2 color markers. So I make a list of like the most important must-have skills, and I mark it in like pink. And then I take a green marker, and everything that is like a secondary skill that I may not have, but I may have the transferable skills to do that, I mark it in green as well. And then I do the same thing with the resume, right? And that's how I understand what my core skills are and what my transferable second skills are. So transferable skills are skills that maybe it's not something you've done, like on a primary level in the job that you most recently worked in. You maybe kind of did it maybe occasionally, but it's something that you have some experience in, that you want opportunity to develop more experience. So those are the skills that you need to highlight in your cover letter and in your resume. Transferable skills are also skills that you can work in different industries. Like, say you were a journalist in like a news station writing copy, and you come to Canada and you want to work in publishing, in the magazine. Writing is a big transferable skill. But writing for broadcast news is different than writing, a human interest story in the magazine. But it is still writing. It's a transferable skill. The context is different, but the activity, the action is still the same, right? So I think that's a really good example I often use. It looks completely different because if you think about the different contexts, like different types of industries, yeah, it looks very different. But if you just look at like the activity and the impact of the activity, it's really the same. And that is a classic transferable skill. So you just have to like look at it in a different way and spin it around. And it's not the reader's responsible to spin it around. You have to spin it for them. You have to put it in a different context so they can see how it makes sense. Mm-hmm. And that's how you nail it. And that's how you convince people.
Yeah.
I'd like to actually add to that a little tiny bit. Transferable skills, I've always treated as a little bit of a myth. Because there's cultural precepts around transferable skills, and we really don't know what people are doing with them, the HR department, or what we're doing with them, or what have you. My bottom line on transferable skills is this. Of course, if you're a communicator, that's going to apply to any sector. Daniel is completely right. Whatever your skills are, they actually usually are transferable. What's not transferable to another industry is your knowledge. So say if I'm working in the broadcast sector, okay, and I get laid off or whatever, and I'm a communications person and I want to go and work in the finance sector, well, there's a whole different delivery for the finance sector as there would be with the public sector, okay? So the best practice I can offer there is if you do want to transfer your skills to another industry, just go, set out there and do some serious research on that industry. Read its business trades a couple of times a day, start to understand the vernacular, and sure enough, then you'll be equipped with the skills and the knowledge to make a really solid impression with an employer.
Actually, speaking of this, I also have another question on the redundancy of in resume. Like, for example, I'm applying to a customer service role, and I have a PhD in biology. That does not mean that I cannot do that customer service role, but do I need to include in that I have a PhD in biology, and what should be the length of the resume? Where exactly you decide that, okay, now from this point, this is redundant. So who would
Daniel,
like
do you
to
want to
answer
take
this?
it?
Yeah, I'm thinking. So I'm just using that example. If you have, a biology BA or PhD, basically you're very highly qualified. You're overqualified for something like customer service, but you need the survival job. You need something to start, right? So the one thing is like, don't put your education at the top of your resume. Like some people are very proud of their PhD, their master's, academically very, very, very accomplished. And a lot of people, they just throw it on the top of the resume all the time. It's like they wear it as a badge of honor, and it should be a badge of honor, but you also will come across as way overqualified, and you're basically competing with, college students who are not as qualified, and frankly speaking, doesn't require a PhD to do customer service work, right? So not to diminish, like completely, not to disregard it, but you want to like put it in its place, right? So you want to put your education on the second page of your resume. You don't want to put it in bold. And if you have other, besides your PhD, if you have other education, like you have also college or bachelor's, if you're applying for a customer service job, well, it doesn't require a PhD, just maybe put your bachelor's, leave it at your bachelor's. No one's going to question you like, oh, are you sure that you only have your bachelor's? No one's going to question you. Whatever you put on, people will believe you, especially at that level, right? So it's not like, it's not lying, it's positioning. It's doing what makes sense. And I always, when I don't know what to do, I always just cut back the basics. I do what makes sense. Not advocating for lying, but it's about positioning. It's about positioning, positioning. And just doing what makes sense. Looking at the job posting, what it requires, right? Not highlighting things that normally you would be proud of. You're applying for an academic position as a PhD, but just putting it in its place. And if it doesn't have a place because of the job you're applying for, it doesn't relate, doesn't have a place on the resume, you just leave it off.
And this ties into your first question, which was when you were talking about what resumes should look like. One of the things that I see coming from the international community is way too much formality in the construction of their resume as well as their cover letter. In Canada, like we're kind of really warm social people here, right? I mean, we do have a certain level of uber professionalism at the macro ranks in government and in culture and all of those good things. But the regular day-to-day companies are really quite informal and very friendly. So to Daniel's point, people can afford to just like take it down a peg. We're not minimizing, we're not negating any of your experience. We're just showcasing it, as Daniel said, positioning it in a different way. So it's more palatable and relatable to the readers and or hiring managers on this end.
Yeah,
Very
and
true,
just a quick
Michelle.
point. Sorry, Miranda. I just want to give a quick point. In terms of formality, yeah, you said it in a beautiful way. I'm going to use an example of a cover letter, right? So I see this all the time with people who are, coming from outside of Canada. Yeah, their tone is more formal. For instance, people like coming from the UK or Africa or India. So their tone is British, like the British style of writing, right? So I see a lot of "Dear Sir" or "Madam." Okay, that will basically will give away that you're not from here, that you're a foreigner, right? Nothing wrong with being a foreigner, but when you're looking for a job, you don't want to be perceived as a foreigner. You want to assimilate. It's all about adapting, assimilating. And that first line, "Dear Sir" or "Madam," well, that's not going to go over well. That's going to make you look different, right?
Then
So
who do
here,
you address that with?
yeah, I think Rhonda knows very well And a different, if you use that and if you don't use that, it generates a different response. So something as simple as that. Just
It's
be
going to
aware.
set a millennial HR person's hair on fire.
So if not dear sir and madam, who should you address that cover letter to? And how to make your letter more gender neutral. This is something that I have learned after coming to Canada.
I always use like dear hiring manager or hiring committee. Or Michelle, any suggestions?
Yeah, I take the approach of write a formal cover letter and then you scrub it. You edit out every single extraneous word. If you have great attention to detail and you're really organized, hey, listen, organized isn't special. It's expected. Okay. So, don't look for redundancies in your letter. Read it for flow, like scrub it. And then once you've got your basic content and you've provided some really decent white space so the document is actually breathable, then I suggest you do one final scrub where you look at the salutation and the sign off and you scrub it for warmth and sociability. So we're not going to go as far as saying, hey, Daniel, I'm new in town, right? But, you're going to personalize it. Dear Daniel, it's not dear Mr. Wong in Canada, it's dear Daniel. We're all relatively informal. And then when you sign off, a really lovely thing to do right now is put a stay safe message in there.
Yeah.
It sets a good example. It's a good responsibility. It's current. It's compelling. Everybody is relating to it. So it's, so scrub it for warmth and sociability. Okay.
Yeah. True. We at New Canadians have a lot of international audience, and I do get calls from my friends and family who have got their PR back home. They will call me and say, hey, we have got our PR. Now we want to apply for jobs in Canada. We are ready. So how feasible it is to apply for jobs when you have not landed in Canada?
Daniel, go ahead. You know this better than I.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think that's all changed over time. I mean, I think 20 years ago, I think it was more possible to apply for work and send your resumes and then arrange for interviews before you arrive. Right? There's just a lot of competition now. There's a lot of competition in Canada, especially in Ontario, we're the biggest province in terms of population and competitiveness as well. So it's a challenge. I think it's less likely. You could definitely look. Now, certain applications universities or hospitals or just like large enterprise organizations, they take a longer time. So it depends on the company. Like some like, for instance, I know university and colleges because I worked in that sector before. It takes a long time for them to go over the resumes, and it may take 2 months before they do callbacks. So if you're gonna be moving, in a month or two, start your application overseas. Mm-hmm. Start your application overseas, and you don't even have, if you're gonna land in Canada in 2 months, but you're still in South America, and you have an address, you have an address for certain in Canada. Don't put your South American address. You could actually you don't have to put even an address on your resume. You can just put like Toronto, Ontario, and leave it at that. Right. So even if you're still in Peru, you're writing your resume. If you're going to be landing in Toronto in 2 months, put Toronto, Ontario. No one's going to know the difference. Mm-hmm. By the time the hospital gets your resume, you'll be here. Right. Mm-hmm. Smaller companies, may not be as possible because they may call you back earlier and then you're not here yet. So it won't make sense. Another thing, but you could do is networking. You could always start networking from overseas. And because everything's virtual now, and I think even after the pandemic, it's going to be virtual. A lot of networking and activity and communications will be virtual. being in another country, applying and communicating and networking and reaching out from another country, not such a barrier anymore. And that's one of the silver linings. Pandemic is terrible, but one of the silver linings is that the physicality of the job search, it won't be the same anymore. And I'm generalizing because there's a lot of stuff still needs to be in person. What do you think, Michelle?
Yeah, I agree with all of those points. And if I can add on behalf of the employers, I do have a good 15 years worth of experience in recruiting. And the employers in my history and my experience have all seen applications from outside the country as a deterrent, right? They're afraid that they're going to have to administer, whatever residency visa, or they're going to have to provide documentation as an employer to, sponsor someone or what have you. And, some companies will do it. Obviously, many companies will do it for the right talent at the right time for the right reasons, right? But as a general rule, I support 100% what Daniel said. Spend your time wisely, spend your time planning, get your goals together, get your marketing tools together, start researching the companies that you want to work with in the sector in which you want to work. I mean, it's all Googleable. What are the top finance companies in Canada? Enter. I mean, it's as simple as that. And start tracking those companies and then start researching them on LinkedIn. And, again, to Daniel's point, that's when the rubber starts to hit the road and you start connecting with people, because it's the connection that is going to make it happen. But you can't make that connection without doing your homework.
Yeah, speaking of that, we have about 15 minutes to end this session, and that's our favorite topic. We can go on and on, but we have two interesting questions from the audience, which I would like to take up. One is, how much of time do recruiters spend on reading resumes? How many resumes do they actually read? Michelle, maybe you can answer this question.
I do believe I'm a little bit different in terms of recruiting. I read every resume. I built my business on the fact that I'm not just servicing my clients from a recruiting capacity, but I'm also taking care of your career needs at the same time, what you want and what you need. So yes, I am absolutely interested in reading. However, out there in the marketplace, because everybody is so distracted and everything is so voluminous and technology is added a full third to our day. People don't have a lot of time. 2 years ago, they were reporting that people would spend 8 seconds on your resume. About a year ago, it changed to 6 seconds. Okay. And of course, my standard joke is, who has a capacity for 12 seconds? A goldfish. So it's true. So you have to find a way. Daniel mentioned the word compelling earlier. You must be compelling. All right. That goes straight into your introduction. And then if your marketing tools look nice and well planned out, like you look like you're happening, well, then, it's going to stand you in good stead.
Yeah, Daniel and Michelle, as we are slowly coming to an end, do you like to add any concluding remarks that you may have on resume writing? And maybe we can go forward with that. I know this is a long topic and 1 hour is just not enough.
Yeah, so just to jump off what Michelle was saying, yeah, my recipe, if there's a few key things that people look at first glance, those 8 seconds, keywords, achievements, right? Qualitative achievements, it's good, but even more important, quantitative achievements. So numbers. So these are revenue percentages. These are sales, marketing numbers, number of readership, right? Things like that. And also how you save money in a company. If you're in marketing or you're in cost cutting and accounting, things like that. So numbers, quantitative statistics tell everything. And it says a lot in a very small amount of space, right? Big impact there. And then things like good spelling, right? So always spell check everything you write ever, spell check it, get someone to proofread it. And then formatting. You want like nice white space. You want clean margins. You don't want to overcrowd. You don't want a resume that's longer than 2 pages. If you're an academic, that's the exception. If you work in academic and you have like you write theses and things like that, then yeah, you could bleed more than 2 pages. That's acceptable. But you know, the standard in Canada is 2 pages. So just those few things. Those few things.
So we'll quickly take up, we'll try to take up as many questions as we can in a little time that we have. Someone has just asked, so should I write my objective in bullet points or should I write it in a paragraph?
I would say that goes in a paragraph to underscore the format that we tend to use as a sentence on who you are now, a sentence on what you've done in the past, and a sentence on what you want in the future. And again, we cannot underscore just how important that profile statement is. And, you know, that's your life story. And then the other piece about resumes too, and, you know, we all want to try so hard to make them perfect, and we go over them and we get our friends, you know, recommendations. Our friends don't know what they're doing any more than we do, you know. The key at the end of the day is, does this document represent you? Is it authentic? Is it your, have you laid down your best self on these 2 pages or 1 page? I prefer a 2-page, but I work at the more mid to senior to executive level. So, you know, is at the end of the day in Canada, this is, I think, very true. Authenticity rules, right? Every Canadian's got a unique personality. They've got joie de vivre. They've got, you know, they represent their education well. You know, they're pretty solid. So I would recommend that you look at your own resume in the same way. Does it represent me? Is it authentic? And is it solid? If it is, you're good to go.
True. Thank you, Michelle, for the lovely insight. There is one more question which might or might not directly be related to resume, and I have to ask Gerard to give another session on it. It is on LinkedIn that I have asked this client of mine to give me a recommendation. I have made multiple requests, but still has not received any recommendation on LinkedIn. What shall I do?
That's a tough one.
How can I encourage him to do it soon?
Well, you know, there are some people some professionals out there that just don't respond. They might not be on LinkedIn all of the time. They might be one of those rare people who is only on LinkedIn once every 6 months. Okay. They might be unresponsive for any kind of personal reason known to mankind. They could be unresponsive because they're not professional, and you'll never know. So at some point, you got to let it go if they're not giving you a recommendation. And then you learn a really valuable life lesson. And that before you leave your next job, you're going to get a recommendation this time. You're not going to make the same mistake twice.
True.
Yeah, it has to be authentic. You can't badger people to do it. You know, it's a give and take, right? You scratch my back, I scratch yours, right? So always, and this is also true of references. I mean, you need references to get any job. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't just kind of hope that one person will give you the best reference. You know, make sure you have 3. You know, you have multiple people. So if one person can't be reached for whatever reason, you go to another person. And that's where networking comes in. You know, references in Canada, usually it's managerial, someone who supervised you at that level. But if you have a really good coworker, someone who was a team lead, who trained you even, and I understand that how you learn, you know, the speed of how you learn, right? These are great things that employers want to know, that their new hires, like how they learn, are they fast learners or not, you know, things like that. Volunteering, you know, people who supervise volunteering opportunities, they could be great references, you know, as well. A mentor can provide you with a good reference. So it's not just someone that supervised you or managed you at work. So don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't wait around forever. You know, if someone's not responding, move on. It's not meant to be. There's someone else who would kind of endorse you.
Very true, Daniel.
Have your back.
And to
Yeah.
add to that, you could switch off the LinkedIn, in this case, for this person needing this critical recommendation, switch off of the LinkedIn program, go to email, give it another try, make it short and sweet, and draft the recommendation yourself and say, here are my thoughts based on our previous conversations. Would this be in any way, shape, or form suitable for you to sign off on for a recommendation for me on LinkedIn? And then write, kindest regards, very much appreciated, and let it fly. And then if you don't get a response, if someone doesn't respond to something that compelling, well, move on.
True. Daniel, I have two more questions. I mean, I just have 5 minutes to go, but I think we have not talked about a very important topic of resume to both of you, which is action verbs. Like if you can just tell me in a minute, what are the action verbs? Why should you use action verbs in your resume? And another question that will take last question from the audience, that if I'm starting my career completely different, will it be a plain slate, or do I still need to include my previous employer?
Yeah, those action verbs are really important. They kind of connect the dots, right? So words like achievements, performing, there's many websites. There's a few really good ones. There's many, but there's a few. One specifically I used, which if I could share later on, I could share with everybody in the chat or something like that. That it lists by profession the key words that you should use for your resume and cover letter writing. I found one. I'm sure there's multiple websites if you Google. Just Google keywords on the profession. The one I go to kind of lists the main keywords, action words, nouns, adjectives that you should use based on what your profession is, right? So yes, action words are really effective. The other side of things is you don't want to overuse words. So there's words that people overuse and it waters down the impact. So people describe themselves, oh, I'm excellent, or I did a great job. Like if you use that, some people I see use that like over and over again on the resume, and it just loses its impact because you use the word so many times to describe everything you've done. Everything is great. Well, it doesn't say anything. It's a very common word, and when you use it too often, it loses its impact. So keep in mind kind of both sides of how to use words, basically. You want to use the right words, but you also want to use it in the right context and not overuse it.
Brenda, what was your second question there?
So if someone is starting a completely different career, so will it be like a plain slate, or do I still need to mention my previous employers?
Oh, the old clean slate syndrome. Listen, a lot of people come to this country, I've seen, and they're crazily pursuing the Canadian experience, okay? You are not wiping the slate clean when you come to Canada. And yes, Canadian experience is important, but your previous experience is important too. That's your life. That's your life. So you're not just starting from ground zero at 40 years of age. Heavens, it's your history. You've poured your heart and your soul into it. I would be proud of it. I would showcase it to the extent that it is helpful to me in my job search. I would use examples from back home. I would identify back home, take some ownership in it, and say, I know it's different to how we do things here, but really like just own it because you're not starting from scratch. And anyone who makes you feel that way here, maybe you don't want to work with them.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think that's it for the day from my end. Thank you so much for joining in and enlightening us with your lovely insights. I would also like to thank the viewers who have joined in today. It was a lovely session. And I'd like to thank Gerard too for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Veranda. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. Real pleasure.
Thank you, Vrunda. Thank you, Michelle and Daniel, for an amazing session on resumes. I know viewers had, you did an amazing job, Vrunda, by the way. And I know viewers had so many questions as well that we couldn't answer, but they can always check our YouTube channel where they would see the previous editions of Café New Canadians. And there are a few other sessions on resumes, LinkedIn, and cover letters as well. So you will get those links or the links to the channel in our follow-up communication. So thank you again, Daniel, Michelle, and Vrunda. Just a reminder for our viewers that this session was sponsored by Destination Employment, a program that assists newcomers to find employment in Canadian hotels and tourism sector. So if you want to get employment in these sectors, and now you can have your resume ready as well, visit the program's website, destinationemployment.ca, to know more about the application process and the eligibility, and also to register for the program. As I mentioned, Café New Canadians is a weekly virtual chat series. So we have sessions every week, same time, on different topics, from employment to settlement, integration, and other topics that are of importance to newcomers. So stay connected to know about the future sessions, and you can connect with us through our social media channels on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Telegram as well. And also through our newsletter, where you will get all the information and resources that we publish on our website, on our YouTube channel, and also broadcast on our TV show. You will get the best of it in your inbox every month. And I spoke about the TV show, the website, and the YouTube channel. You can see the URLs on your screen. So if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, we always love to hear from our viewers. So don't be shy in emailing us your thoughts. Thank you again to you for staying with us for this hour and benefiting from Michelle's and Danielle's big experience and very helpful advice on resumes. Before closing as well, happy Lunar New Year to whoever is celebrating as well.